Hey everyone, welcome back. We are excited to talk about this event we have coming up called Kick Ass Live Podcast Live. And that's the same website you can go to sign up, kickasslivepodcastlive.com. We are offering a 2-hour virtual hangout with us. You can ask us anything about our expertise of areas of coaching, whether that be mindset, personal training, thyroid, all of that stuff, intention, law of attraction, anything that we've talked about in the past that you're curious to hear our opinion on. And we're excited to create a group of max 20 people, meet like-minded tribe members, create a community. So come join us. That website to sign up and get more information is kickasslifepodcastlive.com. And yeah, we got a new sponsor for our podcast. I'm so excited about this. Tell us about that.
Yeah, our new sponsor is Rep Provisions. So if you guys follow me on my other podcast, Inside Out Health, I just did an interview with Eric Perner, the owner of that, the rancher that runs it. And Rep Provisions is a regenerative agriculture company that I cried on the podcast. Okay, guys, it just so excites me what they're doing for Mother Earth. So you hear all this, I think all of us saw Food Inc. and we're like, we got to get rid of the cattle and the industrialization of animals. And this is horrible. So I'm just not going to eat meat. But guess what? There's this whole other side. There's a solution. And they're actually using the cattle to regenerate the grasslands in America, which is so cool. So that's what regenerative agriculture is about managing the land, right? We don't have to not eat animals anymore. What they do is they move the animals along just like they would have in nature if predators were chasing them. And so they can't keep re-eating the newly grown grass over and over. That's basically the premise of it, that allows the grasslands to grow, the roots to get deep, and these animals live a lifestyle that they would have primitively. And it's beautiful. They're not sent to these corn farms. That's what I like to call them, the corn factory, for the last 3 months of their life. They take them straight off of the grass and take them to the butcher right then and there, and it's done, so they're not under all this stress chemical environment where they see and hear the other cows getting killed for 3 months. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible, horrible situation. And so I see them as the answer. I see this kind of farming as the answer, and they're doing all sorts of other stuff. So I'm a huge fan of Rep Provisions, and I'm honored to have them as our podcast sponsor here on Kick-Ass Life. I asked them if we could get a coupon code for listeners. So if you guys want to try any of their products, they have fresh meat products. They also have beef sticks with pecan butter. That is, I call it manna from heaven. It is so good. They've got some bone broth pops out and all sorts of amazing products, and you can check them out at repprovisions.com and use Kick-Ass Life as a coupon code for 10% off.
Yeah, Tara introduced. I've not new to regenerative farming. I've gotten meat from other different kind of pasture raised farms, but when Tara told me about Rep Provisions, I was like, ooh, I really like what this company's doing. And I have to say that I'm a fan of bone broths and things like that, but some of them out there are nasty. I'm going to be honest with you, particularly beef broth. They have one of the best beef broths I've tasted. I was so impressed and super impressed. Tara mentioned beef sticks and pecan butter, and I told her when I received them in the mail, I was like, these two things shouldn't go together. This is wrong. Why would they do this? What kind of horrible culinary move is this? And then I was kind of scared, going, ugh, I don't know. And then it's so decadent and delicious.
It is.
It's so surprising. And then these bone broth pops that are cool. They have these mango pineapple bone broth pops, and that again sounded like but they're amazing, and especially because they're only 14 carbs. It's like a dessert treat smoothie type of thing. You can't taste the bone broth. Really great for kids if you want to get bone broth in them too, or just have a really kind of lower carb ish treat at night in the summer. So really yummy. But yeah, check out Rep Provisions because I am so impressed, and I'm excited about our relationship with them. So.
Yeah, guys, Elle called me and goes, what kind of culinary wizardry do they have going on over there? Bone broth popsicles. These are amazing.
Breaking boundaries of it was really, but I also am now so impressed because of that. Because I talked to a lot of friends who are cooks, and I said, told them about the beef sticks and pecan butter, and a couple of them were like, oh, man, but still, it sounded so wrong, and it is literally such a decadent, amazing thing. So anyway, these guys are doing some really great stuff. So we're excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And even kids like it, my daughter was like, there's no way I am eating those two things together. And she has now requested more. Okay. And my kids are very resistant to my health efforts, but she's like, can you get some more of those with the pecan butters too? So they're amazing. All right. So
yeah, let's start. I'm excited about this topic today. So
me too.
So, the topic is how to identify your blind spots, but the joke is
you can't. That's why they're blind spots, right? You can't.
You can't. Oftentimes it's something, and we were talking about this history, and you're like, oftentimes it's really something someone else has pointed out to you. And that's why, you can't see it. Now, the goal is to get to the point where you can do the work to identify and try to seek out some of your blind spots. And I'll give some tips and some of the things that I've done or used over the years to kind of assess that. I don't know where you want to start with it, but I want to just say that, first of all, it's important to know your blind spots for personal growth, period, end of story, because these are things that you need to grow and change that'll make you a better person, friend, employee, employer, etc., leader, everything. And I'll talk about some of my personal ones, but I don't know what you have to say on the topic before we jump into it.
Just real quick, I'll say, like, personal growth doesn't have to be a solo journey. And if you want, I think we get into this mindset of, I have to figure out all these things on my own. You know what? I think I'm going to need like a year away from other humans so I can just grow. Yeah, right. You can do it that way, sure, but you're not going to get there even a tenth as fast as if you just freaking ask people questions, right? Asking questions is so powerful. Our ego gets in the way because we don't want to look like we don't know what we're talking about, or we don't want to look like, or we can't handle the truth. We're so insecure that we're like, yeah, I don't want to know what you think about me. Like, ugh, that might hurt my feelings. Nah, man, you can get there so much faster if you just ask. So I'd say, remember, personal growth, there's a fast track, and that's actually allowing other people to help you along the way with their feedback. And that before you get started on yours, I'll also just say, like, one thing I've really honed it down in my psyche is, instead of having a shield when people give me feedback where I want to deflect, I have a filter. Okay. It doesn't mean every single thing people say, like, hey, Tara, you're selfish. Okay. I'm like, Now it comes into the filter. It's not deflected by the shield. No, I'm not. Do you know how much I do for other people? I have 4 kids. I serve people all day long. Like, no, I'm not. Right? It's more the that's the shield.
And by the way, that's a great way to identify a blind spot. Something you get so angry and defensive about that someone says to you is probably the thing you need to look at.
Exactly. The filtration process looks more like, I wonder what, from their perception, why they're feeling that. Wait, why do you feel that way? Because every time, like, I text you, it takes you like a day to get back to me, or whatever the answer is. And I'll be like, oh, yeah, that's true. Okay. And now I can change. But it doesn't mean I have to be like, I'm a selfish person and all down on myself. It's just like, thank you for that feedback. I see how my actions there, or the way I'm showing up, cause you to feel that way about me. Your experience of me is that. So this is like, that's a fast track to personal growth. So, all right, let's let you start off and jump into it. What have you been thinking in preparation for this episode?
I was reminded. Okay, so I don't know if have you ever taken personality tests before?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, yeah. So have you ever taken the Myers-Briggs?
I have.
Do you know what you are?
I can't remember.
Okay.
I can't remember.
So
but I think it was that I was the first one, which shocked me.
Because that has an intuitive in it. Yeah. So Myers-Briggs is a great one. I suggest everyone do. But another, and I'll talk about that for a minute. So I, in Myers-Briggs, was an ENTJ. And I took this test 20-something years ago. The company that I was working for at the time had us all do it. And we looked at it, and I read the description at the time. I was like, yeah. Then cut to recently, I was like, oh, you know what? I forget what my thing meant. I want to go look it up. Well, it turns out ENTJ is less than 3% of the population personality type. So it's it's a very dominant personality type. Is anyone surprised?
Elle, no
exactly.
way.
Is anyone surprised? And then it was funny because, you're going to be interviewing my friend Tanya Stewart-Dyer, and I asked her, I'm like, what's your Myers-Briggs? And she was also an ENTJ, and I was like, oh, wow. No wonder, because we have very similar ways of thinking about the world. Over time, what she had mentioned was that she saw that she transitioned into an ENIJ, which was more the intuitive part. Now, I won't get into the whole thing of what these letters and stuff mean. There's so many combinations, but it was really interesting to sort of see what my personality type, it nailed it, and it nailed some of the downfalls, and that those parallel downfalls were also nailed by another personality test that I thought was even more revealing, called the Enneagram. Have you heard of that? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So for people out there, the Enneagram is ENNEAGRAM. And there's like 8 or 9 personality types in the Enneagram. And what blew my mind, it's like $12 online to take the test. I took the test, and the description, you have like a dominant one and maybe a couple. But the dominant one for me was so clear. It was
Which one were you?
It was 8, the Challenger, which is the powerful, dominating, self-confident, decisive, willful, and confrontational. Okay, like... Not surprised.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a 3. Does that surprise you?
What's
Achiever.
The 3? Oh, okay. Yeah,
achiever.
totally.
And I'm always friends with eights. I knew you were an eight. I love eights. I like that personality. It's very like straightforward, and I appreciate that in people.
Right, but yet, maybe me dealing with a 2 would have to. And so these are ways to look at things. But what blew my mind is that when I took the Enneagram test, then I Googled it, and I just write this down, you guys, because there's lots of YouTube videos about the Enneagram. But this one guy, this British guy, there's some old videos of him interviewing 3 people in whatever category it is. His name's Ian McNay, and it's spelled Iain, last name Mcnay. Genius. What blew my mind, I almost started crying, was there were 3 British adults. They were all like at least 60. And they're all talking about what they've learned as being an 8 over their time. And it really, really
Cool.
removed some blind spots from me. Because,
Wow, cool.
And I'm getting goosebumps because when I was watching it, I'm like, I'm listening to like my future self, like my adult self, talk about what they've recognized. So, a couple things
Yeah.
that they recognized was that, this is so me, we have a thing with justice and lying. So we don't like that. So if we see it, we feel like we have to jump into it. But the problem is we can jump into a battle that's not ours without thinking. And so this woman was talking about how she was on a train, in like England, and saw some people slashing, some kids, punks, slashing seats or whatever, and everyone moved to the other end. And she was like, hey, put that down. She jumped right in there. And then she didn't realize until later that she was like, I put myself in danger on that one. And so that was like a blind spot. I used to be that person too. And when I heard her say that, it just like hit me because I knew that that was something I would jump. I'm so like protector for the underdog, but you can't fight everyone's battles. Sometimes they don't even want it to be fought for them. Right. And so, that used to be such kind of that was a ding. That was a blind spot for me until like I kind of realized this. The other one that was so obvious, and I've talked about it before, is a lot of 8s have issues with. One of them was talking about being on spiritual retreats and having issues with being in a room of people offering and throwing love at them. The uncomfortability of receiving that vibe. And I mean, that hit me too, because I'm like, oh my God, I've been there and it's so uncomfortable. And again, like the man in the interview was talking about how for him it was getting up close. And this is where kind of I had to be more in my 2 of, having issues with vulnerability and emotional connection with people, which I've already talked about, that being a pitfall because I'm an alpha, and then all these other things. And so being able to be uncomfortable with an emotional connection and be able to jump into it. And so the 2 is more of the helper and more of that kind of so these, I'm telling you, this whole foray and watching some videos, God, it really, you also see like the downside of your strengths, right? Like my strength is maybe, fighting for justice or speaking up, but then there's these pitfalls that you run into and these blind spots where that good quality turns into a bad one. Because now I've put myself into danger because I just jumped into the middle of a gang fight or whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever the damn thing is. And then also too, because I'm very blunt, I was listening, one of them was like a CEO. Of course, a lot of 8s would be like leaders and CEOs. And she was talking about how she came off, even though she's very direct and blunt like I am, that people are offended or that it's off-putting. That's something I had to learn a long time ago, to kind of preface and pepper, and kind of sprinkle some, onto conversations with people that weren't as direct as I am. Like, I've talked about Mark Sisson. I would be like, I just call Mark Sisson and be like, yo, hey, I'm busy, bye. Okay, bye. Like, nobody's offended by this quick, direct communication.
Right.
Now, the other thing that killed me was watching them talk about, this is such a pitfall and such a blind spot for me that I still sometimes have to work on, which is I do everything really fast.
You do.
8s do. They're very efficient. Get it done. Let's do it. The problem is not everyone else works that way, number 1. And number 2, I often speak way too fast. That is just a fact. I have had people email me and been like, I love your interview with so-and-so, but oh my God. And then I listen to it and I'm like, wow. I mean, look, everyone who's heard me knows I have the ability to talk extremely fast, but that is not really, it's not even something I like listening to. What am I doing? So now my message is getting watered down in some way because someone's turned off by how speedy fast. I mean, even Mark Sisson at one point years ago when I was talking to him, he's like, whoa, hey, Elle, you gotta, again, it's something you'd be defensive about. Like, don't tell me.
Right.
But that I was like, you know what? He's right, though. He's right. And then your other one with your guy and interrupting, I used to be so bad at that. Again, with my friends and you talking, this doesn't matter. But in general, it still made me a better listener to be aware of that. Right. And it's not that I'm trying to F the other person. It's not like I'm so excited. We get excited. We're enthusiastic people. And again, that's where I get carried away with speed. And here's how it kicked my butt one time. I was on vacation, totally relaxed and chill in Mexico. And I wanted to walk to the local store to get a bottle of water or whatever it was. And I'm walking like I'm in downtown Chicago, walking through a crowd of people on the way to the train. And I literally smashed my face into an entire glass wall that I didn't see, a glass door. And I really and I just only got a little scrapies on my nose. Thank God I didn't break it. But I had to come to Jesus myself that day because I was like, what are you doing walking 100 miles an hour while you're on vacation? And this is part of just sort of like, yes, and eighths go fast, but also I grew up in downtown Chicago. We're like moving, it's freezing. I'm like, get this, let's go. People are just moving. I was so used to walking so fast. I mean, I kind of do everything fast. When I'm on a hike and I'm like, oh, I got to go pee, and I go over to pee, people are like, you're the fastest peer I ever, like, how do you go? And I'm like, I'm not pushing. It's just, so again, like and watching those videos of these older people who discuss their life as this character totally like hit me and really helped me. So these are some really great tools, I think, there among the ones that we'll talk about.
Absolutely.
And then, what was the other one? Oh, so I was going to say, let's see, I just want to see if there's anything else in there. Yeah, just this, that not wanting to take the risk of being vulnerable with another person.
Right.
And also, people are often very terrified of eights because we are very authoritative and dominant. And so you can see how then other people respond to that, and it can put people, certain types, uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not that person. And then you go there, and then I'll jump into some other stuff later that I have some ideas on. But those are two things I thought were very helpful. Even Les Meyer-Briggs, although that was fascinating. But this Enneagram, man, and it's $12. I suggest it's worth a round. Take the test. Go look up your personality types with this Ian McNay and his interviews on YouTube. It's like revelatory.
Yeah, that's great advice. I was just going to say what I'm hearing there is you are able to grow and see your blind spots through the vulnerability of someone else admitting theirs.
100%.
Right? So just yesterday, actually, I was watching Mel Robbins on Lewis Howes, and she was saying, like, yeah, I realized, like, I'm still in scarcity. I've still been in scarcity all this time. Like, all this time, she's one of the top personal development leaders in the world. And she's like, I've been in scarcity. Yep. And I so admired her for saying that. And I thought, okay, she's reached all these goals. She's had all this goals. She's still in scarcity. Her admitting that caused me to reflect on myself. Am I still in scarcity? Right. So when we are vulnerable and we admit our blind spots, it gives other people permission to admit theirs. And that's what happened there is, if those people hadn't ever done that, if they hadn't been willing to be like, yeah, this is what I do, and I've gotten negative feedback about it, and I'm working on it, and I can see it, like, then you were like, aha, me too, so vulnerability really helps other people admit their blind spots. Kate, the first step that popped in my mind in this conversation was to choose honest friends, right?
Yeah, right, because they're going to tell you, yeah.
Yeah, and if they're not being honest, like, ask them to be, ask them, hey, like, what's one thing that kind of bugs you about me that you've never told me? I promise.
That's, by the way, that takes confidence and balls to go ask someone that, because, like, you're not going to want the answer, but you're asking for it anyway. That's major self-work. I love that.
Right. And it's just like, but it's there. It's there. It's there. So, and it's asking a lot of your friend too. So you may want to say, like, I promise I'll still be your friend. I promise I'm going to be offended. But don't ask it if you're not really willing to get there. Okay. But choosing honest friends, that's why I love direct friends. I'm typically friends with what would be considered 8s on your Enneagram, or I use a personality test with my clients that's Christian Thibodeau's neurotyping system, and you would be considered a 1A. I don't even need you to take the test to know that. I already know everything, the walking fast, the talking fast, the command and the confidence. And so having like friends like that, I tend to choose friends like that because I like the directness. I like the honesty. I don't like weird energy in my relationships. I want clarity, right? So choosing honest friends is like one of the biggest de-stressors you can do.
Yes. Well, and one of my friends pointed out, and this was great. So because I don't like justice, because I'm a justice, lie. I don't like it when I see injustices. It's like the bane of my existence. So a lot of 8s will like fight for causes and campaigns. I'm not that person, but because of that, if you were in a relationship, let's say with boyfriend, husband, and you called me and were telling me something shitty that they did, forget it. My claws are out, and I'm about to just go to town on being I will go off, right? And look, it's kind of fun because the other person, like, you want someone to be like that, so I'm just like trying to be the good friend there, and I'm like, this son of a bitch. But then I had a friend who, oh my gosh, one of my best friends, and thank God, and she's a coach, so honest, and she said to me one time, she said, here's the thing. I'm going to tell you something that happened with my significant other. Please hold off until I finish the whole thing before you jump on your hate wagon, right? Because I'm ready to go. And I accepted that, and I just, and then at the end I said, that was kind of tough. And they were like, I'm very proud of you. I was like, that was really tough. But you know what? It's like because the conversation or the situation with them had an arc and had a thing, and I would have started to get pissed and defensive at the arc for her in the injustice of it and being able to just call it out. And so again, like now I know that with her, and it's about like, hey, I recognize this. Or my friends also know to preface things with me. Like they'll say, hey, look, not looking for coaching on this one. I just need an ear. I just need someone to tell me I'm not crazy. Because then I know, like, okay, thank you. I won't give advice on this one, right? So again, clarity, honesty. But yeah, my best friend pointed that one out to me. And you know what? She was dead right. I'm too quick to jump because, again, that's my thing. Like, how dare they? Oh, I will, And so I'm just raking them over the coals. And, that's not necessarily nice either if it's your mother, your sister, your husband, or whatever it is. You still love them, right? Like, and here I am, bashing them to high heaven, and you're probably still going to have a relationship with that person. So,
right.
So right. I mean, listen, that's what's great about friends, and also friends who can communicate that way and tell you that. And look, I didn't want to hear, like, ew, like I felt a little gross, right? Because you're like, man, shit, I do that. But
right.
I'm an adult enough to go, no, you know what? I needed to hear that. She was right to tell me that. I get it. I freaking get it.
Yeah. It's all valuable. It's all valuable feedback. On another note with friends, another tip is to have diversity in your friends. Because if all of your friends are exactly like you, you're going to miss blind spots all over the place. I've learned this because there's different qualities I like in different people, right? And some people are maybe more like me. They're achievers and they're into fitness and they're entrepreneurs, and I have those friends, and they're into law of attraction, and we talk about manifesting and all that stuff. Then I have other friends that I just really like because I just like their way. I just like how they are. I just like who they are as a person, but they're not like me. They don't act like me. I learned so much from them because they're like, ew, that's like, if they give me honest feedback, they'll be like, why be like that? And it's just this new thought that I hadn't considered. Or maybe they're really into movies or TV or things that me and my little entrepreneur high achiever world, we don't ever do. And I start to have my mind open. I start to see like, wow, I'm actually kind of like not really integrated with society because I don't know a lot of the culture, what they're talking about, because I don't watch any of these TV shows or any of that, right? So it's like, okay, I could see how that could kind of actually separate me a little bit because of that, right? So it's just more feedback. It's more interesting thought. My daughter's 14. She's really into politics. I hate that crap, but but I learn from her, right? Like, I'm like, okay, so this is how like a lot of people are thinking.
You
Okay,
wouldn't have known how
got
to
it.
vote the other day if it weren't for your daughter. She was like,
Exactly.
she, by the way, her advice was right on that one. I saw that. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, she called that one really well. Yeah, she was right.
If you guys missed it on my Instagram, I shared it as a story that my daughter was giving me voting advice. She's very into it. All right, here's another one. Consider other people's point of view. Just consider it, especially right now. This is such an easy thing to do. Just get on Facebook and just scroll until you find somebody's opinion who completely contradicts yours, and just try for a second to consider it.
That's a good exercise, because there's a lot of polar opposites out there that are really going to be triggering, and you got to just sit there and deal with the other side.
Right. And does it piss you off to even think about doing that? Are you like, I'm not doing that? Like, freaking BS. Like, why? Why? And maybe that's a pattern in your life all over the place. Maybe. So just consider it. Like, just consider. It's like that. If we go into other people's point of view with that filter and not the shield,
Yeah.
and we just can just for a second be like, okay, hold on. That's outside of my way of thinking, but let me just roll it around in my mouth for a second. Okay. Yeah, interesting. And you might get some insight. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but you may get some insight that you wouldn't have gotten if you weren't willing to just consider it a little bit, right? That's growth. That is how other people help us grow and help us see our blind spots, because we're so locked into being right. All right, this one is a big one for me because it's really fresh. Ask for it. Ask for feedback. Ask for it. I actually, in preparation for this podcast, finally acted and sent out a anonymous feedback request to my clients. Okay. So I just 2 questions on Typeform. I use Typeform all the time. I was like, I don't want to make this hard for them, make it really easy. I literally did this in 10 minutes. Okay. I was sitting in my car and I just made it like, and I think the questions were, I wish I would have written it down. I was like, what can I improve on in my coaching? What would you like to see different in my coaching? And what do you enjoy in my coaching? That's it. Texted it to all of them. Hey, can you fill this out real quick? It's 2 questions. Man, so eye-opening. It's so helpful. It's the fast track. Instead of me being like, I think they're going to like this, or maybe they'll like that, or, maybe we should do a little more of this or a little less. Why am I figuring it? They're the one experiencing it, right? So asking for that feedback is the fast track. And if your ego can handle it, and, one that was like, hey, provide more time for us to talk on the coaching calls. Great. Thank you. Awesome. That's less work for me. So like, fast track, another one.
Let me jump in on that one. So that's a good one, because often, and I've had that too, particularly with like the thyroid coaching, because it's kind of clear in a lot of ways on labs or some that they're experienced. It's a little bit more clear cut than, let's say, a life coaching call, and so that can happen too. The being aware of going into lecture town versus letting someone else, because sometimes a lot of my clients just need to express and experience empathy for their situation. Well,
right.
I always have it, but there are times when I'm like, getting down to business.
Yeah.
And no interview that I do on a podcast is great when it's all business, and no coaching is either.
Right.
Both have to have some personal element. When I'm on a podcast and I really talk about what it feels like to have had hypothyroidism, I'm connecting with other people out there suffering. That's important for them to hear that versus just science and other stats and statistics. And same goes for any other thing. So that's a good one for me even here, because I'm sure I actually need to also still keep that one in mind for myself that your client told you. That's great.
Right. Yeah. So asking for it, even with your spouse or your kids, like, what's your experience of me? Like, what's one thing that you would like to see different in your experience of me? What's one thing you would like to see more of in your experience with me? I mean, I asked my kids, that was interesting, because like they could jump on the negatives really fast, and they were having a real hard time with the
You
positives.
make me clean my room. Like
exactly. So it's like, and that takes a certain level of personal development too, to like not be like, oh, you can't think of a single positive thing. Like, don't do that. Okay. Right. Like, it's easier for even adults to go point out negatives than positives. It's going to be difficult for kids to think of positives because they just expect positive, right? So they're not like identifying all day long, like, wow, I sure love that my mom does that. Like they're not. So I think also when you do ask for feedback, like be prepared to not take it personally. Like look at it as help, look at it as a key and a cue into their heart. One thing that my son said was like, when I don't like it when you yell at me, and like that sounds like a pretty typical answer for a kid, but I'm like, no, like I'm actually seeing into his heart that like that's the first thing that really affects him.
That's his thing. Like that's his
right.
Really, right. Like versus your other kid who's like, I don't care.
Right. So it's just such wonderful feedback, and it is the fast track if your ego can handle it.
It's good to be prepared though, because you're asking for something that might be a negative, it's coming. Yeah. Don't now be defensive or rip on the person who just had the balls and the openness to tell you something that you asked them for that is a little bit, it's walking a fine line.
Right. And don't say anything back in the moment. You are not ready for that feedback in the moment. Just say thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm going to go think about that. I appreciate it.
It might take you weeks to be able to respond to that, because now what has happened, somebody gave me this feedback actually the other day and told me that I was judgmental. And I was like, well, how am I not supposed to be judgmental in this situation? That's what I thought in my head, right? This was out of a dating relationship. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I have to judge whether or not I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Like I immediately went into like, yeah, this is justified. And I was like, no, hold on. I'm going to need now like a week or a few days to watch that in myself. Am I being judgmental? Am I, oh my gosh, I am. I'm doing it all over the place, right? So it's like you need time to be able to see. You're not going to see it in the moment. In the moment, you're going to want to deflect. So don't say anything back. If someone's willing to, you're exactly right. Have the balls, have the courage. It's uncomfortable for them to tell you that. Just thank them and move on. And then just watch for that in yourself. Like my daughter, no surprise, of course, she was just like, I don't like it when you're on your phone. Of course. Like I was expecting that one. I work off my phone for a living. And I was like, okay, that's really important to her. So now I can't in the moment change that, but what can I do in this weekend? I can freaking watch that really hard. And then I will get the awareness. I'm like, oh, I'm sure this weekend I'm going to be like, dang, dude, I'm doing that all over the place. Right. So I think, allow the time once the feedback is received to like see it in yourself.
Yeah, it's good you brought up the judgmental thing. This reminds me of, there's this really incredible woman I interviewed not too long ago. The podcast isn't going to be out for a while, but her name's Sharon Saylor, SAYLER.com. She's a body language expert. And I asked her about kind of a scenario of a client. And it was really interesting. She had this woman who was in business. And the way that she processed things was very compartmentalized. So let's say you are telling me an idea for business. She would scrunch up her face like this while she was listening. Do you know what I mean? She would just scrunch up her face. And people always kept telling her she was like judgmental. Right. So she goes to Sharon and she's like, I don't get it. I'm like the least judgmental person. I don't understand. So Sharon's talking to her and she goes, do you even know what you're doing with your face? She took a picture of it and she said, what do you think? When you see, like, if you saw this with someone else's face, what would you think? She's like, yeah, it's a judgmental face. And all that it took work for her to get out of that was that when she was in meetings where she might normally make the scrunchy face while she's listening and processing, because that's her habit, right? She put pen to paper and would have it there to kind of deflect energies. And, nice. And Sharon Saylor works with companies and corporations and everything. And she even said things like she's changing the culture of a company, going into a company and like something simple where everyone overuses the word basically in conversation in an entire company, where you say, go, well, basically, so and basically, Tara, and it's just like all over the place. And she's like, that's the one thing that needed to kind of get fixed with this culture. So not only just language, but body language, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. So maybe your body language is something that is a blind spot for you too, versus just things you say, or if you're always like this and closed up like this, when you're talking to people versus open. Another thing she mentioned, which I thought was interesting, was that having your chin level to the ground is the power position, versus me being like, hi. If I tilt my head and say hi, it could be suggestive, it could be flirty, it could be interpreted differently than just straight ahead. Or if I'm 5'2", very short, dealing with someone tall in business, Sharon would say, say, hey, would you like to take a seat, so that we're on more even ground and I'm not looking up at the person. You know what I mean? If you're at a conference table, another power move is to take up more space and bring a legal pad, like bring one of the yellow pads because it takes up more space than a device, and own it. You know, your area. So there's things you can use body language right for power moves and leadership moves. But there's also things like, oh my gosh, why does everyone think I'm, because you're scrunching your face up every single time. And she wasn't judgmental. That's just how she was like listening and concentrating and focusing in the way she processed things. And I thought that was great because these blind spots, like the scrunchy face, they're self-sabotaging.
Right.
So this woman is self-sabotaging deals, business, right? People wanting to work with her. I remember my mother's like a gemologist. She knows everything about diamonds and emeralds and anything with the history of jewelry. And she used to manage Neiman Marcus precious jewelry for many years. And so I was always kind of in that world. But one year, a long time ago, she had a big high meeting with Tiffany's before she got with Neiman's. And the interview, I mean, my mother's like a superstar. And so like the interview went well and everything, but the feedback she later got as to why she didn't get it, she didn't smile enough.
Wow.
She didn't smile enough in the interview. My mother, like me, very, just like business. I mean, she's actually less me. I'm probably worse off that way. But she is, she was trying to be professional, but in that light, not showing any type of, personality.
Right.
Just smiling. Just
amazing.
Smiling was a thing. So like, what are you doing or not doing? That is, and by the way, I got that note when I was in Hollywood. I'm still am in Hollywood, like as an actor, but when I went into some of my first auditions, I walked into them almost like a business meeting from the corporate world. And the casting director's like, Elle, you gotta loosen up, man. You're not talking to Charles Schwab in a CEO meeting. If and I was like, this is a totally different arena, and I look too serious, or I look mean, or like someone who doesn't want to work with me, and I come off that way. I totally understand that, but I'm kind of more aware of it now. You know what I mean? So anyway, I just wanted to throw out some of those things. Interesting. And Sharon Saylor, real interesting about body language. So what are you doing, slumping? What's your body language that might be giving off a misimpression?
Right. Yeah, I love that so much. And I love that story about the lady with the scrunchy face because like she could have been like, no, this is just how I look when I'm analyzing information. She could have deflected, and just been like, no, this is just how I am. That's what I hear a lot when we don't want to see our blind spots.
It's inner bias.
This is how I am, and everybody can just freaking deal with it. Like, don't tell me how I need to be. You guys can deal with it, right?
Well, that was the last conversation we had where I was like, if someone's ever like, why don't people just let me be me? It's like, that's a red flag because you're denying.
Exactly. That's you literally saying, I refuse to see my blind spots. I refuse to see my blind spots when it's everybody else's fault, especially when you're getting the same feedback from multiple sources and you still can't own it. You still can't even let it go through your filtration system. Oh, that's probably one of your bigger blind spots, right? Yeah, it's like if everybody else is seeing it except you, it's you.
It's totally you. And also it's you know this too, because everyone listening has had a scenario where they're hanging out with friends or people or whatever, and they leave and they don't feel good about the way they showed up to that thing. We've all had a moment like that where we're like, you gave a wrong impression, maybe you're bad, whatever it is. Yep. You were a bad friend. Maybe you didn't listen. Whatever it is, you didn't show up the way you like. Those are always good moments.
Yep.
If something's yucky after a hangout, it could be because you're hanging out with a downer that you shouldn't be hanging out with, but it also could be because you're the yucky downer. And if something is uncomfortable, dig in there. Was it you? Right. Is any part of this yucky experience you just had you? Yeah. Because I can own that too. I'd be like, oh, you know what? I did not show up for that one.
Yeah, digging into that for sure and owning our part is so huge. And usually it's a lack of honesty somewhere. You're either not being honest with you're definitely not being honest with yourself. If there's weird, I've learned if I have weird energy, I am not being totally real. I am not being totally honest. I'm not being totally transparent. I'm trying to show up in a way that isn't true to me. And that causes all sorts of problems. All right. The next one I had on my list was, where do you get emotionally charged? Right? So for seeing your blind spots, if you are getting emotionally charged about something, I promise there's a blind spot. That's my red alert for my blind spots. I'm like, why am I getting so freaking worked up about this? What is actually going on? Where's the story? And sometimes I have to get help. I'm like, what's the deal? And if you have a conscious friend who does their own work, like they can really help you with that. you know? So emotionally charged is a huge indicator that there's some deeper work that needs to be done. And then this is one that I actually learned in a personal development seminar that I talked to you about that I went to this past weekend. And I love this. I left this. I have been doing this way better. I'm not perfect at it. I'm catching myself still quite a bit. But that is, instead of saying I fill in the blank, we say we or people or like, yeah, I just feel like we sometimes ignore our blind spots. No, like I feel like I ignore my blind spots, right? There is so much ownership and power in that statement. Sometimes we're not completely truthful. I lie. I lie.
Harsh.
Right?
Harsh and
right?
true.
And it's not sugarcoating it, but it's so powerful when we get to that extreme instead of like this elusive they or we. We is a really common one. We, right? So try every time we.
That's really pushing it onto the whole rest of the world, isn't it? Right there. It's like
yeah, I do that. I do that all the time. I mean, that's like my whole Instagram is full of that. Like you look at every post, it probably has that in it, right? So now I've been taking every time I want to go into these, we do this and we do that and we do. I've started changing to I do this, I do that, you know, and stop saying kind of or sort of. Own it. I am late. I'm late. I am not punctual. I'm not the most punctual person in the world. Oh God, that's such a weak statement. I am chronically late. Well,
you're really speaking my language now. I wish all the people would work on that because I hate lateness. That's mine. That makes me like go nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because that's been a huge blind spot for me because I have been chronically late.
I'm shocked to hear that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, it's something that I've finally owned, you know, and actually was a conversation with one of my friends, Kate. Shout out to my friend Kate. She was like, I hate it when people are late. That to me, that is the biggest sign of disrespect in the whole wide world. And she was actually saying that in response to a story as I was telling her about somebody else being super, super, super late to something. But when she said that, I was like, oh, really? People feel like that? Like that it's like this huge, huge sign of disrespect. And as I thought about that more, I'm like, it is. I'm actually putting my time in front of theirs. Like that's really selfish and disrespectful. And so I've been working on it. So
I did a post on Instagram called "Are you late?" And I was like, I went off. But one of the things was so I had a friend who we would go on the same hike and it was equidistant to each other, like 2 miles both ways. She knew how much time it took. We've been doing this thing for years. Come on, people. It's not a new. All right. She was like 15, 20 minutes late every single time for like a while. I let it go for a bit. I finally said, hey, would you be late to a meeting with Steven Spielberg? Nobody on this call would frickin' be late to that meeting. Damn it. You know damn well you'd be extra on time. You'd be 10 minutes early just to make sure you weren't late for that meeting. So guess what? I treat everyone like frickin' Steven Spielberg, and so should you. I don't care. That's awesome. Enter Steven Spielberg with whatever famous celebrity, whatever, whatever. Okay. Right. I just mentioned it because we're in Hollywood and, people will respond to that. So, and she got it. And so now what she will do is she knows how I feel about this. So she will prompt me and say, hey, I might be it's rare though. She's mostly on time. But it's such a sign of like disrespect for me. Now, that being said, I was having this conversation with someone and we were both like, oh yeah, just totally. Yeah. Can't stand it. This is years ago. And then we had to meet somewhere and I totally didn't even show up, like blew off the appointment, like horrible. And I was like, oh my God, I'm mortified. We were just talking about this. Not only was I not late, I just didn't even show up. So of course, everyone's going to make a mistake here and there. But for the most part, I am always on time. It's also just, you're reliable. That's dependability. Right. When you're chronically late, people start to not trust you anymore because what it is, it's not doing what you say you're going to do. Really.
That's right.
So people have strong things about that. I am so one of those people, and I'm almost always on time, if not early, because I get stressed when things are rushed because I hate the idea of being late. Now, maybe sometimes I mean to be a little bit more fluid with that, and I am with friends. Like, oh, whatever, we know, okay, it might be traffic, give or take, we'll meet between this time. I'm not a Nazi about it. But when someone's chronically 15, 20 minutes late every single time to something that we both know we always go to, I had to call her on it, And again, that's being a friend. She's gotten better. Maybe she still does it with other people. I don't know, but she doesn't do it with me.
You know what? I bet that your honesty with her has been life-changing, because for me, what I've shifted to, it's caused so much learning in how I'm doing everything, because that put it off. Oh, I think I could have time to do my hair real quick. It's like, no, you definitely don't have time to curl your hair right now. Like, you will be 10 minutes late if you do that. Or no, like it's caused a backtrack of like 4 events earlier to become more on point, right? Instead of me just being like, oh, I can just kind of mosey my way through this. If you're doing that with your time, you're doing that with your life. It's really actually been quite profound for me hitting this blind spot. So if being late is one of your big blind spots, it'll probably be one of the most eye-opening life changes that and it's not get there at 5:01 or 5:02 is on time. It's no, like 5 o'clock is almost late. 5 o'clock is kind of late.
If
right?
you're on time, you're late. That's kind of how I feel. Like, I feel like if you can be there 5 minutes before, and also too at this point, I've had come to Jesus with some friends who are like, oh, I'm running late. They're always late for work or whatever, and you're like, no, sorry, you're never going to get the promotion. No one is ever going to trust you or want to hire you if you're always flaky or late or whatever the story is. Yep. Like, you have to step up if you're talking about employers as well. And, as well, like, at what point, like past a certain age, come on, people, time management is one of the easiest things. Like, we all know, how much time it takes to do your stuff. And if you don't time it and figure it out, I mean, so it's kind of a basic thing that I think people get pissed off about, because it kind of is so easy to manage to some degree. It's just kind of blown off or chosen not to by the person. I don't know how you felt about it in the moment as a person who was always late. How did you feel in those moments? Did you know you were late? Did you ever feel bad about it, or you're like, whatever?
I was hoping for the best and not taking responsibility for my choices.
Got it. Right? Okay.
So it was like, oh, I think I still have time to do like these extra 10 minutes of abs at the gym. Like, I'll be good. It's lying to yourself. It really was. It was just lying to myself when I knew that was going to push me late, but it was like, no, I think I can do it. I think I can just real fast, like, hurry up and I'll just change. And the other thing is that causes so much unnecessary stress.
That's why I hate it. It's so stressful to rush. I hate it.
Right. It's so stressful. It like literally takes years off of your life by having this habit. Right. So it's a really powerful blind spot. If that's your blind spot, hear me from a recovering, I'm still in recovery, okay? A recovering late person. It's taking years off your life, and it's disrespectful, and it's filtrating into every other habit in your life because you're not taking ownership. You're like, oh, I didn't know. It's been really eye-opening too when something happens that I didn't expect. Like, okay, I'm doing great, and then crap, like, how did these necklaces get tangled together? And I really want to wear this necklace with this outfit. Dang it, now I'm gonna be late. And it's like, okay, next time I need to account for discrepancies, And so it's a learning
well,
process.
We have a thing in LA because LA non-pandemic is really crazy traffic, so everybody knows it. Kind of like, you get that it takes an hour to get somewhere, so no one here ever accepts the excuse from someone that it was traffic.
Right.
Almost rarely. It's got to be some accident or something where they're like, oh my God, I'm stopped on but for general, we all gauge, we all know, we add on an extra 20, 30 minutes to everything. In fact, sometimes we're often way too early because of it, because again, that's just how LA works. So people in this town, when people say like, oh, well, sorry, traffic, people go, F you, like,
right.
You how long have you lived here?
Exactly. That's awesome. They call them on it. Yeah. We've talked about this in previous episodes, but how awful is it when somebody makes excuses for it, right? And that goes for all of our blind spots. When someone's like deflecting and excusing their blind spot, it's not a very admirable moment for that person, right? You're sitting there like, cool, you don't see it at all, and it causes a lack of respect to develop in that person about you. So, but part of blind spots is taking personal responsibility. It's just taking ownership of what the feedback that you're getting in your life, and then noticing after that, am I actually doing that? Damn, yeah, I actually am doing that. It's just taking ownership for the feedback that you're getting in your life and the results you're getting in your life. Yeah,
and you can sit back and go, okay, hold on a second. What are some events or scenarios that have happened that are yucky in the past couple of years, or that I didn't like, or I wish I could go back and change how that went? There's something in there. There's something in there that might reveal a blind spot. I was looking up. I saw an article about this. I thought this was interesting, just like kind of 10 common blind spots, but particularly with leadership, but these kind of go everywhere, which is going it alone, right? I got it, don't need help. Then there's the being insensitive of your behavior or on others. What your behavior is affecting others. Having an I know attitude, right? Avoiding difficult conversations. Blaming others or circumstances, treating commitments casually, conspiring against others, withholding emotional commitment, not taking a stand, or tolerating good enough. So those are just some things to think about. If any of those things popped out to you guys on there, let's see.
Powerful.
I'm wondering if I have anything else here. Well, no, we talked about this though, but it is, like you mentioned, it is not today, but you mentioned to me, that's a self-esteem indicator. It's an insecurity indicator because you're just barreling over yourself, right? In a way, be like, it's not true, or, you know what I mean? And so if you can't own some of this stuff or hear it, and again, some of the criticism, you filter it and you might go, nah, they're just full of shit and they're asshole. Like, maybe they're not right at all. But you don't have to take every criticism to heart. But I think that's really important. And also, too, I think when you are angry, accusing of people wrong, or particularly that we've talked about before, when you have gotten off the phone or something, where you're like, and you're like, so, like, I'm freaking right, they're wrong, there is something in there. There's a judgment of another person. There's something to unpack that's a blind spot of yours. You know what I mean? And so, Anyway, I don't know what else you have to say in wrapping it up, but hit it.
I just think feeling right, man, watch out for that. I'm learning that so much of myself. I'm watching for it. I feel like I'm just torn wide open right now. And I'm like, okay, teach me. People teach me. Universe teach me. Like, teach me. I'm open. I see it. Okay, I get it. I got stuff to work on, and it's such a wonderful, it's actually a very beautiful, peaceful place to be, because it's like
self-love at its coziest.
Yeah, it is. It doesn't, it's not, I think that we think it means we're berating ourselves or belittling or being too hard on ourselves. That's not what it feels like. It feels like learning and growth, and like, it actually feels quite de-stressing and very
And if it
empowering.
doesn't, get a coach, because we don't want anyone to beat themselves up and then go into some either victim mode or I'm a terrible person. Everything can be changed. You can improve. So if you're feeling that way, you might want to reach out to someone who can point out the positives of all of these things.
Yeah, that's a great point. Don't go it alone, right? Get a coach, and there's plenty of them out there. And hopefully you guys will come join us on our Kick-Ass Life Podcast Live.com event. So that's a Zoom event, you guys. And guess what? I will close by saying this. I don't offer single consults anymore. So if you want access to me, you have to completely hire me as a coach. So if you want just like a kick in the butt from Elle and I on just whatever it is, whether it's your health stuff, thyroid stuff, personal growth, business growth, whatever it is, come join us, because that's the only way to get access to us for just like a kick in the butt to get you in the right direction without having to go into like full tilt coaching, right? So,
and while I do still do one-on-one, I would say anyone can come on and ask about thyroid. That's cool. You might benefit from a one-on-one to get like all into it. And if you want thyroid, have your blood work ready, because you could throw it out to me. But for the most part, I will probably move away also from some one-on-one coaching as well. And again, not just because it's one-on-one, you get me and Tara and the other people. You get to learn from other people. One of the most fun things about being an actor in Hollywood is when we do casting director workshops with other actors, or we do things where other people are performing. You learn so much from the notes that the casting director gives the other actor, not just you, but you learn so much from even a person's story and how we might be talking with them about it on it. So it is really a good, it's extra juicy than just having a one-on-one, in my opinion. So I think, and again, creating a tribe, meeting some other like-minded people and all of that. And, we want to connect with more people on social media too. So great. Yeah. So join us on that's July 25th. At 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern in the U.S. And again, kickasspodcastlive.com. For all of the audio options, kickasslifepodcast.com, or you can go to YouTube and watch this interview, and also subscribe on Apple. We would really appreciate it if you go to Apple and write some reviews, guys.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
And share with your friends. If you like an episode, please share. Please spread the word. We appreciate you guys, and we hope to see you on July 25th.
Bye.